Have you ever wondered why some stories sound like they could only exist in a dream, yet they hit you harder than reality itself? It's strange, isn't it? The moments we try to bury, the ones we beg to forget, often become the very moments that refuse to let us go. We're told that time heals everything, but what if time is just another witness, silently counting down until the truth demands to be faced? And here's the paradox. The same choices that almost destroy us can also carve out the path to redemption, if we dare walk it. So stay with me, because what you're about to hear isn't just a story. It's a mirror, and in it, you might see more of yourself than you expect. Oh, and before we begin, don't forget to leave us that free tip. Hit the like button, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments. That small gesture helps us keep bringing these stories to life. He wakes to a world that feels thin, like tissue paper between dream and daylight. He blinks, tries to name what's real, and the silence answers back with a taste of salt. The mentor in the story leans in and says, "Confusion is a compass, not a sentence. A map that points him toward the first honest step." Imagine you, at 3 a.m, deciding whether that memory is a ghost or a clue. He does that same small, brave sorting. The line between fantasy and life shivers, and it's there on that trembling edge that his story quietly begins. And it doesn't end where he thought it would. He carries a coat of smallness. Just a poor boy, he tells himself, as if an anthem can reshape a life. Pride and poverty have taught him to whisper more than he shouts, to take tiny exits instead of bold doors. A mentor voice suggests a simple practice. Write down one honest sentence each morning, and watch the fog thin over weeks. This is not about money or titles. It's about the quiet ledger of choices that either weigh you down or lift you up. So he counts small mercies like coins, and each one becomes a little shove away from the cliff of despair. Then the confession arrives like a pulled thread, one impulsive act now unraveled into 1,000 consequences. Guilt is not just a feeling. It is a pressure that makes the body small and the chest a crowded room. The narrator, steady and calm, offers a tool. Name the fear aloud, not to justify, but to unhook it from the dark. He learns, awkwardly and humanly, that naming the thing reduces its appetite for hiding in shadow. That admission opens a doorway, not redemption yet, but the honest hallway that leads out of the maze. Fear wants him to run. Shame wants him to burrow. The world wants answers and lightning-fast judgment. He feels the pull to disappear, easy come, easy go, as if vanishing were the simplest kind of mercy. The mentor reminds him that running only reshuffles a burden. Staying and seeing it through is a real, terrible courage. A practical step appears. Make one tiny repair today. Call someone, return a favor, clear a regret. These small repairs create a pathway. And as he chooses a slow, stubborn way forward, the noise outside grows louder, preparing the stage for something unavoidable. Sudden thunder, flashes of accusation, and a dizzying chorus of voices press in like a courtroom. He imagines the world chanting names, some sympathetic, some cruel, and his heart answers in a language of its own. The narrator compares this chaos to a storm at sea. You can thrash, or you can learn to steer by the stars you still trust. There's a hint of dark humor in the mentor's voice. Mistakes make strange company, but they also make stories worth telling. The thunder fades into first crack of light that points toward what comes next, a public reckoning and the choice he will have to make. The weight of his act sinks deeper, like stones tied to his chest pulling him down. He replays the moment again and again, each detail sharper, more merciless than the last. The narrator explains that memory can become a prison if you polish its bars every day. It's like staring at a cracked mirror. No matter how long you look, it won't fix itself. So he learns that the only way forward is not to erase the past, but to face its jagged edges. His body begins to carry the evidence. Shoulders tight, back aching, hands trembling at night. Guilt doesn't live only in thoughts. It takes up residence in flesh and bone. The mentor compares it to carrying a suitcase full of rocks, pretending it's empty. Anyone watching might think he's fine, but inside, every step feels heavier than the last. And with each passing day, the rocks seem to multiply until his silence is louder than his words. He hides from those who might see too clearly, slipping away before questions can land. Friends call, but he lets the phone buzz into the void, unable to face their voices. He tells himself it's safer that way, as if isolation could erase the crime. The narrator adds softly, "People often choose loneliness not because they want to, but because shame convinces them they deserve it." And so he builds walls higher than any prison guard could design, locking himself in with his secrets. Still at night, a single voice haunts him, the memory of his mother's gentle call. Her name carries warmth, but now it cuts like glass against his heart. He remembers her hands, steady and forgiving, and wonders if that forgiveness could survive the truth. The mentor offers an image. Even broken glass can reflect light if held toward the sun. It plants a question in him, small but relentless. Maybe there's still a way to find mercy. The clock ticks louder. Time becomes a shadow following him everywhere. He feels the curtain closing on his own stage, the air thick with an ending. Yet the story hints at something waiting beyond despair, something he hasn't yet dared to imagine. The narrator insists, endings are rarely endings. They are disguised as beginnings too heavy to recognize. And so, trembling, he steps closer to the truth he's been avoiding, where his story twists toward the next storm. The truth doesn't whisper anymore. It roars inside him like thunder in an empty canyon. Every breath feels like an admission, every silence like confession unsaid. The mentor explains, truth is patient, but it is also relentless. It waits until the weight is unbearable. You can try to outwalk it, outdrink it, outrun it, but truth always has longer legs. And he begins to understand that running has only brought him closer to the chase. The body keeps score, cold sweats at dawn, restless tossing in the dark. He feels shivers along his spine, as if the universe itself is warning him. The narrator compares it to carrying an unpaid debt. The longer it lingers, the more interest it demands. A small cough turns into a pounding ache, a sign that guilt is not only emotional but physical. And he realizes that his body is sounding alarms louder than any voice could. One night, he writes a farewell note, clumsy words smeared by shaking hands. It isn't meant for anyone specific. It's a letter to the void, to time itself. The mentor observes, farewells are never really about leaving. They're about hoping someone notices before it's too late. He tucks the note away, hidden under his mattress, as though the paper could carry the weight for him. But the ink doesn't soothe. It only deepens the echo of the storm gathering inside. The thought of disappearing tempts him, like slipping off stage before the final act. I don't want to die, he mutters, yet in the same breath. He wonders if life itself has abandoned him. The narrator adds gently, wishing to vanish isn't always about death, but about longing for a pause. Sometimes people want not an ending, but a break from the noise of their own mistakes. And in that contradiction, he finds himself caught between the desire to stop and the faint hope to begin again. Still, a quiet ember refuses to extinguish. Even as despair digs its claws deeper, he imagines one more sunrise. The mentor insists, every ember, no matter how small, carries the blueprint for fire. Hope doesn't need a shout. It only needs to survive the silence. And as he grips that ember, trembling, he prepares for a reckoning larger than himself. The reckoning doesn't wait politely. It crashes in like a storm tearing open windows. Voices surround him, louder than thunder, accusing, demanding, never letting him breathe. He hears echoes of names, fragments of prayers, curses mixed with pleas. The mentor explains, when the world points fingers, it often forgets that shame already did the job. And yet, standing there, he realizes that the storm outside cannot compete with a hurricane within. He sees faces in the crowd, some familiar, some strangers, all carrying judgment in their eyes. The narrator compares it to a courtroom without walls. Every glance a gavel, every whisper a verdict. He longs to disappear, but roots him in place like a tree in gale-force winds. Even denial would feel like a kind of relief, but he cannot muster the strength to lie anymore. And so he trembles, knowing that silence is also a confession. The storm grows stranger, surreal. Figures mock him with laughter, their words twisting into riddles. Scaramouche, Galileo, Figaro, nonsense that still cuts sharper than reason. The mentor smiles faintly. Ridicule has its own violence, sometimes sharper than a blade. He remembers being a boy, teased for things he couldn't change, and how the echoes still stung decades later. Now, the past and present blur, and he feels mocked not just by them, but by fate itself. But amid the chaos, he hears another voice, softer yet unyielding. Let him go. The narrator explains. Mercy often begins as a whisper in the crowd, faint but insistent. Someone believes he deserves another chance, not freedom, but forgiveness. The idea jolts him, like finding a door he thought was locked forever. And suddenly, the possibility of release becomes as frightening as the punishment itself. Still, shadows cling to him. Devils reserved, debts unpaid, futures uncertain. He feels the weight of choices pressing, as though destiny itself holds him by the collar. The mentor warns, every man wrestles with his own Beelzebub, the part of him he'd rather not admit exists. He wonders if redemption is truly possible, or if he's simply bargaining with demons wearing softer masks. The question burns, unresolved, dragging him toward the next breaking point of his story. Defiance rises in him, sudden and fierce, like fire meeting dry wood. How dare you spit in my face, he wants to scream, the bitterness clawing its way out. The narrator explains, anger, though dangerous, can also be a sign of life refusing to be extinguished. It is the heartbeat saying, I'm still here, even if broken. And in that defiance, he rediscovers a fragment of strength he thought he had lost. The crowd doesn't soften. If anything, it hardens, pressing closer, sharper. But now his shoulders square differently, not as a victim, but as someone daring to resist. The mentor observes, sometimes survival is not about winning, but about refusing to collapse. Think of a boxer still standing after the 12th round, battered, bleeding but unbowed. That's the kind of stubbornness that begins to pulse through his veins now. He sees betrayal in familiar eyes. People who once called him brother now treating him as plague. It stings, sharper than the mockery of strangers, because betrayal always wears a known face. The narrator compares it to a ship sinking while the crew fights over who to blame. Everyone scrambles for safety, forgetting that some wounds are shared by all. And in that chaos, he learned that loneliness can be louder than any verdict. Still, the desire to flee gnaws at him. Just run, just vanish, just be anywhere but here. He imagines doors swinging open, pathways untaken, skies wide enough to swallow him whole. The mentor interrupts with a reminder. Escape isn't always freedom. It can just be a different kind of prison. We've all felt it, quitting the job, and in the relationship, leaving town, only to find the same ghosts waiting elsewhere. And so he hesitates, one foot on the threshold, one still chained to the fire. That hesitation sparks a revelation. Maybe running isn't the answer, but neither is surrender. Maybe the real task is to carve a way out that doesn't deny what's been done. The narrator leans in. Redemption isn't cheap. It costs time, scars, and brutal honesty. He feels the first glimpse of that path, terrifying and fragile, like a rope bridge in the wind. And with that glimpse, the story tilts, pointing him toward the next uncertain chapter. The storm outside fades, but the storm inside refuses to quiet. He walks alone, footsteps echoing as though the ground itself is judging him. The mentor explains, solitude can be either a punishment or a teacher, depending on what you do with it. Some nights it feels like silence will crush him. Other nights, silence feels like the only thing keeping him alive. And in that fragile space, he starts to wrestle with what truth actually demands. He remembers the farewell note hidden under his mattress, the word still unfinished. It stares at him like an unopened door, beckoning, dangerous, unresolved. The narrator reflects, sometimes what we write in secret says more about us than what we say aloud. Letters hold the confessions we can't yet dare to speak. And this one whispers to him, tempting, reminding him that the choice hasn't left. But another memory interrupts, the echo of laughter, the warmth of his mother's embrace. He wonders if forgiveness could reach even him, if her love could survive what he's become. The mentor offers a story. Once, a man shattered his father's prize violin but returned with the broken pieces. Instead of rage, the father taught him that music still lives in silence. That story burns inside him, hinting that maybe brokenness can still hold beauty. The nights grow longer, the body weaker, but his resolve shifts like a tide turning. He realizes he doesn't want to disappear unnoticed. He wants to be seen, truly seen. The narrator explains, at the core, every soul craves witness, even more than absolution. To have someone say, I see you, even here, even now, is sometimes enough to keep breathing. And so he lifts his eyes for the first time in days, searching for a horizon instead of grave. Yet the horizon is no promise. It's a challenge. Shadows still cling, voices still accuse, demons still whisper in familiar tones. The mentor cautions, the journey doesn't get easier just because you choose to walk it. But choosing to walk is itself an act of rebellion against despair. And that rebellion carries him, trembling but unbroken, into the next chapter of his trial. The trial within him now mirrors the one outside, every heartbeat a gavel strike. He feels accused not just by people, but by his own reflection. The mentor explains, self-judgment is often harsher than any jury, because it knows every hidden detail. It's like being both the prisoner and the warden, locking yourself in a cell with no key. And still, he wonders if the punishment he carries might one day become the cure. The voices around him grow theatrical, mocking, singing his fate like a cruel opera. He hears chants and cries, let him go, never let him go, a chorus of contradictions. The narrator compares it to standing at a crossroad where every sign points in opposite directions. We've all known that moment, when advice comes loud but offers no clarity. And in the noise, he begins to realize the real verdict can't come from them. It must come from within. A flicker of rebellion stirs. Tiny, but real. He starts to think that maybe forgiveness isn't something to be begged for, but something to be built. The mentor shares a truth. No one can hand you absolution, like a gift wrapped in ribbon. It has to be constructed, brick by brick, with actions that echo louder than words. And so he imagines a life where repair, not denial, becomes his daily task. Still, shadows cling with their whispers of doom. Beelzebub waits in the corner of his mind, a devil set aside just for him. The narrator explains, every man wrestles with his demons, but not every man admits it in daylight. It's not about pretending they don't exist. It's about choosing which voice gets the final word. And in that recognition, he takes his first trembling step toward reclaiming his story. But the path is steep, and the world is not quick to forget. He knows stones will still be thrown, eyes will still glare. Forgiveness will not come cheaply. The mentor warns, redemption isn't a one-day miracle. It's a lifetime's work. Yet even knowing this, the ember of hope glows a little brighter, and that glow pulls him toward the next turn in his journey, where choice will demand more than ever before. He feels the weight of betrayal again, this time not from strangers, but from those closest to him. The sting of abandonment cuts deeper when it comes from familiar faces. The mentor explains, wounds from outsiders fade quicker, but wounds from loved ones echo for years. It's like being struck not by an enemy's blade, but by a friend's silence. And that silence, louder than any verdict, gnaws at the edges of his will. Still, he refuses to collapse completely. Defiance sharpens his spine, a fragile shield against a flood of accusations. The narrator reminds, strength isn't always about roaring. It's sometimes a quiet choice not to bow. He remembers stories of soldiers who stood unarmed, surviving only because they refused to kneel. And in that memory, he finds a strange courage that surprises even him. Yet doubt creeps in like fog, suffocating and slow. What if every attempt at redemption is doomed before it begins? The mentor acknowledges, failure is not the end of the story. It's often the draft of a better one. Think of inventors, bruised by endless mistakes, yet each error brought them closer to light. So, too, his stumbles may not bury him. They may carve the very path he needs to walk. Inside, he feels torn between the urge to run and the pull to stand still. Escape whispers of freedom, but also of cowardice. Staying promises pain, but maybe also healing. The narrator explains, life often places us at crossroads where both choices look wrong, until courage chooses for us. We've all felt it. The moment where every option seems cursed, yet standing still feels worse. And so, trembling, he leans forward, inch by inch, into the harder road. But the harder road is far from simple. It promises no applause, no quick release, no guarantees of mercy. The mentor cautions, Walking toward truth is like climbing a mountain. You measure progress in breaths, not miles. He begins that climb, with fear as his shadow and hope as his lantern. And in that climb, the story points him toward the next trial, where defiance and despair will collide again. The night deepens, and with it, the chorus of doubts returns stronger than ever. He hears them in whispers, in echoes, in the hollow pauses of his own heartbeat. The mentor explains, doubt is not always the enemy. It is often the proof that you're still fighting. Only those who care about the outcome wrestle with uncertainty. And so, even in the grip of fear, his struggle reveals a flicker of life still burning. Anger, once a stranger, now becomes an ally. It rises when betrayal mocks him, when the world spits in his direction. The narrator reflects, sometimes anger is simply grief wearing armor. It is a fire that pushes a person's stand when every reason says to fall. And in that fire, he discovers a strength that surprises him more than anyone else. But fire is unpredictable. It can warm or it can destroy. He feels it licking at his resolve, threatening to burn the very bridge he longs to cross. The mentor warns, power without direction is just chaos, and chaos rarely builds anything lasting. Think of a storm, impressive, unstoppable, but it leaves only ruin unless harnessed. So he begins to search for a way to channel this fire, to make it serve rather than consume. That search points him inward, to the demon still waiting in his shadows. The devil reserved for him, his Beelzebub, does not roar, it whispers. The narrator explains, the most dangerous battles aren't fought outside, but within the quiet corners of the mind. And those battles never truly end. They only shift forms as we grow. He realizes this isn't a fight to win once, but a lifelong war to fight with open eyes. Still, even in that war, he senses something breaking loose, like chains rattling before they snap. He knows the world still watches, some waiting for his collapse, others for his rise. The mentor adds, every story bends at the moment when a man refuses to be who he was yesterday. That bend doesn't erase the past, but it reshapes the future. And with that realization, he stands on the threshold of transformation, the final test looming ahead. The world quiets, almost unnervingly, as though holding its breath for what comes next. He feels the silence pressing against his chest, heavier than the crowd's noise ever was. The mentor explains, silence is where the real verdict is spoken, not by others, but by yourself. It's the mirror moment, the one no one else can face for you. And here, standing alone, he realizes that choice is the only true judge he'll ever meet. He closes his eyes and hears the melody of his own regret. It is a song of beauty, but truth, raw, uneven, yet painfully real. The narrator reflects, music doesn't always soothe. Sometimes it exposes the cracks we try to hide, like a hymn sung off-key, yet still carrying the weight of prayer. And in that broken music, he senses the outline of redemption taking shape. The urge to collapse hasn't left, but something steadier begins to root within him. It's fragile, trembling, like a candle in the wind, yet it refuses to go out. The mentor explains, real strength is not thunderous. It's the quiet persistence of light in darkness. Think of a single lamp guiding a lost traveler. That's the kind of strength now flickering in him. And for the first time, he doesn't just want survival. He wants transformation. But transformation demands sacrifice, and he knows it. The path ahead won't erase his mistakes. It will carve them into scars he'll always carry. The narrator insists, scars aren't the end of beauty. They are the proof that healing happened. He imagines showing those scars one day, not as shame, but as testimony. And that thought alone keeps him moving, one faltering step at a time. As dawn approaches, the first light breaks across his face. It doesn't promise forgiveness, but it whispers possibility. The mentor's voice softens. Every ending carries seeds of beginning, waiting to be claimed. The journey isn't over. It's only shifting, changing form, becoming something new. And with the sunrise, he steps into the next chapter, where the story will finally reveal its name. Have you ever carried a secret so heavy it felt like it could crush you at any moment? Do you believe that forgiveness can truly set someone free? Or are there choices that can never be undone? And tell me, which song hides a story you'd like to see brought to life here, the way we did today? Your words in the comments could be the spark for our next journey together. If the story made you feel something, anything, don't keep it to yourself. Subscribe now. Turn on the notifications and stay with us, because the next story might be the one that speaks directly to your soul.